All right, good evening. My name is Pierre Mayo. I'm a direct action activist. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Pierre Mayo y ahora yo soy en Veracruz, Mexico. I'm in Veracruz, Mexico right now, and I'm going to do this interview in English. I'm an anarchist, and I'm also a Christian evangelist. I travel around mostly in Latin America, and I work in pretty dangerous areas. I have hit about 6 of the most dangerous cities in the entire world, which happen to actually be located right south of the U.S. border. Veracruz is nice at the moment. We just had a huge earthquake, and we had a hurricane, but that tapered off. So I'm out here. I'm doing this in response to a vendor named Juan, who got extorted and robbed by the police department while he was trying to sell food on the UC Berkeley campus. Now, I'm from Berkeley. I grew up in Berkeley. I understand that this man did not have the proper papers to sell hot dogs, I believe it was, or sausages or chorizo. And the law enforcement did extort him. They did rob him. They were pretty rude. They were definitely out of line. However, I'm seeing a lot of people that are responding to this video that are not aware of how law enforcement functions in the United States of America. So I'm going to put it to you pretty easily. First things first, I've seen this video has been shared well over 50,000 times, and it's really awesome that a lot of attention has been brought to this situation. Now, I'm not sure why this individual, Juan, did not have paperwork. He did not have the proper permits. I do know that it's really difficult to know what property you are on around the UC Berkeley campus. I spend a lot of time there when I'm stateside. I am homeless. I live in my car, and I travel around, and I generally evangelize and preach on the streets. But for whatever reason, he was there. So a lot of people that aren't into this movement, which is a freedom movement, and the freedom movements encompass a whole lot of movements. I've worked in prison abolition, environmental issues. I've done a lot of police accountability, cop blocking, cop watching, all sorts of different movements I've been involved in. And this is nothing new. So what you got to understand is when you're talking about taking these cops' badges, oh, we're going to get their badges, this is horrible, they robbed him, they extorted him. What I'm seeing is a disconnect from a lot of people that are a little bit wet behind the ears, or they're not quite tuned into what's going on in the world right now. So I'm going to explain this to you pretty simply. The police and law enforcement in the United States of America are not there to protect and to serve. Okay, that is a mind control brainwashing slogan. It's a propaganda slogan that they use to make you think that it's all flowers and bunny rabbits, and they're there to protect you. They're not, from the inception of law enforcement, they were not there to protect citizens at all in the United States. In fact, a lot of police patrols came from slave patrols, and I'm not going to get into that in this video. But they protect corporate interests in the state. So when they say law enforcement, they enforce laws. Your emotions have nothing to do with their law enforcement. So while we know this is wrong, if we have any concept of morals and ethics, we can see that it was wrong what happened to Juan. He obviously did not have a whole lot of money. He didn't have an entire whole lot of know-how on how to operate on the streets of Berkeley, much less close to the campus of Berkeley. Right now, I don't speak a lot of English, so I'm processing this in English right now when I'm used to speaking Spanish a lot. So he didn't quite get it, and what was done to him was at the officer's discretion. So they did not have to steal his money, because that's what it is, even if they can get away with it, because cops will do what they can get away with. It's not about right or wrong, it's about what they can get away with. So they could get away with extorting him, they could get away with robbing him, because that's what they do. And if you're familiar with the Berkeley area, there are tons of street vendors, And I spend a lot of times on the streets, so I speak with the street vendors there, and one of their biggest concerns is actually being robbed and extorted by the police, the same way that this man was. And God bless you to the individual who's brave enough to document this and blast this out, because social media is a very, very valuable resource. All the way from the U.S. and different countries, by using social media, I've actually managed to be able to do activism that reaches into the United States and actually help people all the way from another country within a matter of minutes using social media. So kudos to the man who stood up and took that footage and caught those officers doing their job, if you will, because that's what cops do on a daily basis. So when you're talking about taking their badges, that has no basis in reality, because this is what the police actually do in the United States of America. And I've been all over the world, and I clash with cops often. I've seen a lot of police officers that treat transgender folks as if they were trash, and I have stood up to them. I have encountered entire prostitution rings where they're prostituting children that the law enforcement is actually the pimps of. I've seen a lot of stuff in my travels. So what you have to understand is, when we're talking about police officers, first of all, that job attracts a lot of sociopaths, okay? I'm not a 1-3-1-2 guy, so I don't believe that all police officers are evil. However, I do believe that the institution itself is evil. It's a institution about enslaving people, and it has nothing to do with protecting people. Okay, sure, there's a couple bad guys that get caught, they don't kill more people, but that's not what the police are for. They're not to protect you. They're to protect corporate and state interests. So, while I said I don't think that all police officers are evil and they don't join the job just because they're power tripping and they want to hurt people, the tendency for people to gravitate towards that profession who are sociopaths clinically is pretty high. And in fact, if you know a lot about officer statistics, you will know that first things first, over 90% of complaints against officers never get successfully prosecuted. That's number one. You need to understand that and understand the implications in that. And number two, statistically speaking, about 40% of families of law enforcement officers have reported abuse, domestic abuse specifically, from a law enforcement officer perpetrated on a family member. So that means that 40% of cops have had allegations of domestic abuse against them, and that is only the people that are brave enough to make complaints to other police about police. And if you're in a cop family and you understand how police work, that's an incredibly dangerous and brave thing to do. So out of that 40%, we could say that those were all very brave people in desperate need of help, and there's probably a higher percentage of people that are too afraid or were too afraid to bring official complaints against the law enforcement members in their family. So right there, you need to understand that the police do not work for you. They serve an elite power structure, and it's compartmentalized as you go down the chain. All right, so these guys are going to get away with what they did to this guy, to Juan. They're going to get away with it. You can't take their badge, because in order to do that, it means that somebody in their chain of command who actually ordered them to commit these types of abuses under the color of law sanctioned it. So they're not going to hang these officers out to dry. These police are out in these communities and they are shooting black kids. Okay, they're shooting brown kids. They're shooting poor kids. They're shooting men, women, and children of lower economic demographic in the United States of America, the land of the free, and they're getting away with it. They're not going to prison. They're not going to jail. They're getting put on paid leave. Their charges get dismissed, get thrown out of court. If anything, they might get transferred. They pop up somewhere else, abusing more people. So what you need to understand is this system does not work for you. So a lot of these people that are making these thousands of comments like, oh my gosh, how can this happen? You got to understand there's been soldiers out on these streets, people that are doing activism every day, people that have lost their lives, people that are incarcerated right now, and people that are all over this world that are trying to fight against this corrupt power structure. And the foot soldiers of this power structure are the law enforcement officers from COINTELPRO. If a lot of you might know about Martin Luther King Jr., especially if you're from the United States of America, he was targeted by the FBI in a covert illegal program called COINTELPRO. All right, they were trying to get him to commit suicide, and they eventually got exposed. They had to disband the program, burn tons and thousands of documents. You need to understand that freedom fighters are targeted by the police, and there's a lot of freedom fighters out there that are trying to do work to expose this. So there's a lot of new people that are seeing this situation, which God bless them, and God bless Juan, because Juan is going to be taken care of right now. People they're trying to get money together for him. He's getting some exposure, but this stuff happens in communities all over the world every day, in poor communities, in black communities, in brown communities, all over, not just in the US, but everywhere I go, everyone knows when I talk about United States law enforcement, they're, the country with the racist police that murder black people. So everybody knows it's not just you out there, but you got to get your mind in the game. You got to get with the program and understand that this is not an isolated incident. This happens every day. In fact, I've lived in neighborhoods where the people in the neighborhood will contact gangbangers. If you break into their car or their house, they're going to contact the gang members in the neighborhood to do an investigation before they contact law enforcement. That's because they know what law enforcement is. Now, I'm not a gang member. All right, if I'm in any gang, it's a Christian gang. I'm a Christian anarchist, and I devote my entire life to serving Christ. All right, but I'm not religious. All right, I'm trying to tell people you got to resist all these systems of control, and the first step is you. So when you see what happened to Juan out there, you need to understand that you made that happen. You made that happen because you believed in U.S. policy. You believed in politics. You believe in the government. You got your Bernie Sanders stickers. You're over there voting for Hillary Clinton, or you're voting for Donald Trump, who's quite obviously a compulsive liar and narcissistic. And I can't diagnose him further than that because I'm not a medical professional. But like you all are supporting a system of oppression that is built on white supremacy. And I'm going to tell you right now, especially for the black supremacists out there, because there's nothing wrong with black power, but the black supremacists, you got to understand that these people are waging a war on every poor American, not just the black people. Now, I'm not going to say they're not getting hit with the brunt of it. And I'm not going to say the brown people aren't right there close behind, but they're waging a war on the minds and the hearts and the bodies and the spirits of all people that are poor. And this is an American thing, and the people that are enacting this zeitgeist are United States law enforcement. Okay, it's just a fact. It's just a fact. You wake up, you open your eyes, you see it. Now, this man's situation is emotional for many people because he's not what most people think of as a criminal. When you think of a criminal, people raping people, murdering people, violent crime, selling drugs, even though the U.S. government is actually the biggest drug pusher next to the pharmaceutical countries, the pharmaceutical companies in like all around the world. But those are the people that you generally associate with crime. What you have to understand is that your emotional response has nothing to do with the reality when it comes to the letter of the law and the crime. So when that law enforcement officer, in all of his narcissistic tendencies, said that, welcome to law and order, this is law and order, that's what he's saying. He said Juan is a criminal because Juan is trying to make money for his family and himself to eat by selling food, nourishment to other people in the United States of America, but he's cutting the state out of the equation, and therefore he's a criminal, which means that I can kidnap him, I can assault him, I can rob him, I can extort him, I can pretty much do whatever I want to him. And you have to understand, these law enforcement officers that were doing this, I don't know about their track record, and I'm not trying to criminalize them beyond the fact that they robbed, extorted, harassed, and coerced and threatened this individual, which apparently for police officers, they can get away with it. But I guarantee you that you and I cannot do that. These guys also had brown skin too. They did, and they understood Spanish because he was speaking in Spanish. So don't get it twisted. Just because you see a black cop or a brown cop, don't think these people are your friends, because they're not. They don't serve you. They're not serving the people. And the sooner that the people that are upset and enraged by this understand that, the sooner they can get radicalized. And that seed of radicalization means that they can move over from their brainwashed statist tendencies and be on the side of the people. The people. You and I are people. We're human beings, okay? I'm a military veteran as well, all right? And I'll tell you one thing for sure, that these law enforcement officers out here are held to a standard far below the United States military, all right? And the people that the United States military and the people that have sacrificed their lives, their freedoms, their some of them, even their families, to serve people in this country or whatever they believe that they're serving, they're dealing with dangerous, really dangerous people that have real guns, that have big guns, that want to kill them. And they're held to a higher standard than law enforcement that sees American citizens as enemy combatants. Okay? I don't care if someone wants to say military people are brainwashed. One thing that they're not brainwashed to do is to see American citizens as the enemy. And that's how police officers in general are indoctrinated. So you need to understand that. You need to understand that not everything's a conspiracy theory just because Fox News does a report on it or some blogger online says it's not true. What you need to do is educate your mind, understand history, and get with the program. So I see a lot of people that are popping up now and they're outraged and their hearts are pumping and they see this. You have to understand that Juan is just one incident of this in the United States of America. And he's just one person who's victimized. I'm not saying he's a victim. All right, Juan's got support. Juan decided to go out there not understanding everything about the area he was in and probably not understanding a whole lot about the culture. All right, and he went out there and he went and did what he had to do to make money for his family, and he got robbed. He got robbed by the people that are supposed to protect people like you and me and Juan, and he got robbed, cold-blooded robbery. That's what that was. All right, but that's what the state does. And the sooner you understand that the state, they are agents of extortion and robbery, and they do use coercion and violence and the threat of force to subjugate you to your knees to serve the masters that they serve, the sooner you're going to get out of this mind-controlled construct that all these people out here are your saviors, because they don't exist. These people aren't your saviors. You might call them, but I'm going to tell you what, this skin you got, this black skin that I have, this brown skin that I have, this black and brown skin that these people have, that could be the difference between life and death on the streets when you're dealing with these foot soldiers. And that's real talk. That can be the difference between life and death when you're dealing with these foot soldiers. And the quicker you realize that, the quicker you're going to wake up and understand. This incident right here was a fairly non-violent example of someone being robbed and extorted. You want to go into the ghettos, into the barrios, into the hoods around the United States of America, you're going to hear a lot more stories, and you're going to hear stories of people that couldn't get their stories on film, where the police beat them up, kidnapped them, where they broke their cameras and cell phones. They wiped the data on their phones. They stole their phones. This is real. This is not a conspiracy. All right? There is a war on the people, and it's being perpetrated by the people. It's being perpetrated by people the same as you see in the Jewish concentration camps, the Nazi concentration camps, like Auschwitz, where you have the Jewish police. They got a little bit extra food. They had a little bit nicer living arrangements until it was their time to get murdered and stuck in the oven. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. They're throwing these people tidbits, the dogs. If you understand, these people are their dogs. That's what they do. They work for them. They go fetch. All right? So you need to understand these people are not your friends. This happens all the time. And that video you're seeing about Juan needs to radicalize you. It needs to plant the seeds of truth and revolution in your mind, so you're no longer a reactionary and you actually get out there and do something. You do something. All right, so I got to go now. I got stuff to do. My name is Pierre Mayo. You can find me on Facebook, Outlaw Preaching for Jesus, but I'm not important. I'm just a revolutionary out here in another country right now getting it done. You're important. because it's up to you to make the difference, and it's up to you to take what you feel from this video and go out there and make a difference for people. Make a real difference. Because without you, it's just gonna keep happening. This cycle is gonna keep happening. And I'm gonna tell you what, Juan is despite his situation, he's lucky because they're killing us out here. They're killing us out here. That's what they're doing. They're murdering us out here. So you need to take that spirit of revolution and you need to do something with it. Make a change. Make a change, because if you don't do it, no one else will do it. All right, peace to the peaceful. And God bless everybody.